Welcome to NorCal Tea Party Radio.
All across the nation, the party's just begun. Voices speaking loud and clear, there are battles to be won. Gathered here to reunite, join the revolution, 'cause we are strong and standing tall, upholding the Constitution. We the people say.
And now the host of We the People NorCal Tea Party Radio is Ginny Rapini. Jenny is the coordinator of the NorCal Tea Party.
Welcome to We the People Radio. Tea Party Patriots want to welcome you for this Sunday afternoon. First, I want to tell you, though, what our core values are, because the media has not painted us in a correct manner. So who are the Tea Partiers anyway? Are we really the angry mob? What do we stand for? We stand for three core values: fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, and the free markets. It's very difficult in my mind to have to disagree with that. Another thing that makes us different as a group, NorCal does not involve themselves with any one political party. We are neither Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. We are conservatives because we believe they've all lost their way and they need to get back to the founding principles of this nation. So that's it in a nutshell. We're not complicated at all. We're really very simple. Today we have a special guest who is going to help us to understand our taxes, which this means it'll be a marathon meeting that we have here, and we'll probably go for about 82 hours. Just kidding. But we have Jim Donnell here, and he is going to talk to us about the FairTax. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I want you to just enlighten us a little bit. Explain to us, what is the FairTax?
So I think it's important first to understand how broken our current tax system is. The tax code that we have right now has grown from 400 pages in 1913 to over 75,000 pages in today's tax code. It started with the passage of the 16th Amendment in 1913. Americans currently spend somewhere between $300 and $500 billion each year trying to comply with an overly complex tax system. It's basically taxation without comprehension. Everybody knows when you do your taxes, and we're all doing this right now, you send it in. I don't care if you pay somebody to do it. When it goes in, it's wrong.
Absolutely.
And if you get audited, ultimately you just have to ask how much you're going to have to pay. So it is really incomprehensible in terms of what we have right now. It also doesn't tax the the Americans actually spend, I said, over $300, $500 billion a year. It also doesn't tax the $1 to $2 trillion of black market economies that are out there. These are cash businesses and people that are not reporting income and never will.
Such as
the illegal trades, people doing, organized crime, as an example. But these people are actually making a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And they're spending that money. So the FairTax, as you'll hear in just a moment, will actually capture a part of that income because they're going out and they're buying houses, cars, and boats. It's basically anybody doing a cash business and not reporting the income or underreporting their income. Mm-hmm. They also, latest IRS estimates estimate that we lose over $450 billion a year because of cheating and misfiling. So that's money that the government is not currently getting into their coffers, which ultimately means that we have to pay more as individual citizens because others are not paying into the system. The current system, as we know, discourages people from working. I don't know how many people I've talked to that says, I don't want to work that extra overtime because I'll just end up being bumped up into a bigger tax bracket and I'll have to pay more. So we're discouraging people from working. And frankly, they don't understand our tiered tax system with respect to, if they're going to be in a higher tax bracket. But it's still, they're discouraged from working. We also, U.S. producers are put at a disadvantage compared to global producers. There's no easy way for U.S. producers to pull out the tax that they're paying for the products, and that goes built into the taxes, into the products they're creating. So ultimately, our products are more expensive overseas than they should be. We also know that, and we've heard this, GE is the poster child for this, corporations don't pay taxes. Well, actually, corporations either typically pass the tax on to us in the form of higher costs for their goods, lower wages for their employees, or lower dividends for their investors. But even companies like GE, between 2006 and 2010, they paid $84 million to lobbyists and actually extracted somewhere close to $4 billion from the federal government. So why are they paying $84 million to lobbyists? For tax preferences, small changes in the tax code that give them an advantage so that they don't have to pay as much tax. So the system is fundamentally broken.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
and you and I are making up the difference for all that stuff.
We absolutely are, and it's frustrating.
Yes, it is.
It's truly frustrating, and that's part of the reason that I got involved in this. And there's a lot of talk in Washington about tax reform, and we seem to want to just tweak the system. We've done that for 100 years. And we ended up with 75,000 pages of tax code.
That's even more than the Obamacare bill.
It's even more than the Obamacare bill. It is ridiculous. So we need to fundamentally throw out the existing tax code, and we need to start over. And we need to have something that is simple, it's easy to understand, it's visible, everybody knows what they're paying, and it's progressive, so people who make more can pay more into the system. It's got to be fair in that way. And it's also not subject to abuse by taxpayers and by members of Congress and lobbyists. Again, how much tax did you pay last year? Most people have no clue. So we need
especially if you're just looking at your income tax, you may know that, but you're not aware of all the other taxes that you have. I would love to see the IRS abolished, and this would abolish the IRS. Is that correct?
It would, and that originally seemed like a radical concept to me to say we could abolish the IRS. But the IRS is in place to enforce income tax. So what is the FairTax? The FairTax is a comprehensive plan that abolishes or ends all income tax on a federal level. That includes payroll tax, Social Security taxes, death taxes, capital gains taxes. It also eliminates all business income taxes. And again, we just talked about the fact that corporations don't pay taxes anyway.
My husband's corporation does. My corporation does. We're a little S corporation.
I understand, but ultimately you have to make a certain margin or profit. So at least some percentage of that money that you're paying in taxes, you're passing on to the people that you're providing services or goods for. So you're passing it on in one way or the other. So ultimately, who pays taxes? It's people. People are paying taxes. So what the FairTax does is eliminate all income tax and replaces it with a single national retail sales tax that is collected at the final point of sale. There is no tax on business-to-business transactions. There is no tax on used goods.
Now, what do you mean business-to-business transactions? Are you talking about wholesaler to retailer?
I am talking about you're a legitimate business. You are selling products. You're collecting income. You're reporting at that. You're collecting tax. The things that you buy, all the things that you buy that are part of your business are not taxed. So your furniture is not taxed. If you're making bread, the wheat that you're buying to ultimately turn into flour to make bread, that's not taxed. There's basically no business to business taxes. There's no personal income tax. All that goes away. And again, it's a final a tax at the retail sales desk when you buy something at the cash register. It's also a tax on services too, which is new to most people. So it's a tax on new goods and services.
So when this was passed, when the federal income tax was passed back in 1913, that was the first time the federal government had the ability to touch the individual citizen. Up until then, it was through the states. Will this eliminate some of that intrusion of them being able to touch us personally, or can they go ahead and raise it and raise it and raise it and raise it again?
So the fundamental question is, what's to prevent, Congress from changing the national retail sales tax rate? First, Congress actually has a rule that says you have to have the supermajority to change any tax rate. So you have to have 3/5 or 60% vote in Congress in order to change the tax rate. Ultimately, though, part of the problem that we have is people don't know how much tax they're paying. When people talk about the tax that they're paying, oftentimes they are talking about, what they filed on their tax return, and they forget there's a payroll tax. And the payroll tax is 7.625% on each side, so the employer and the employee pays that. I guarantee you that the employer is lowering your wages to cover that 7.625. So effectively, that's around 15% that's already coming out of everybody's pocket who's working today. That is also a very regressive tax. Everybody pays it, regardless of if you're working and making $1 million or making $1,000. That's also where the whole thing with Romney paying 15%. His is mostly capital gains. He's not paying the payroll tax.
Right. Okay, so how does the fair tax differ from a flat tax?
So let me, I'm going to take a step back, if I could, for a moment and talk a little bit more about what the fair tax also does. Think about this. If we implemented the fair tax in the United States, companies could come to the United States and produce products tax-free in the United States. The estimates by the economists who have studied this says that it'll create 16 million new jobs in the first year of creating this. It would be a tremendous boom to our economy. It would bring an estimated $14 trillion that are parked offshore back to the United States to be invested in creating businesses, building corporations, employing people in the United States. It also has a prebate, and this is important, that reimburses every man, woman, and child living in the United States legally.
I like that word.
Yeah, they've got to have a Social Security number. There's compliance that they have to follow up with. But everybody living in the United States, it reimburses them for the tax that they would pay on the basic necessities to the poverty level. And this is what fundamentally makes the fair tax progressive. Okay, because most people will argue that a sales tax is regressive. Add the prebate in there, it's reimbursing you for the basic necessities, and I have charts I can show you that shows how that makes it a progressive nature.
Okay, so that's the real quick, then we're up against a break, but real quick, the difference between the flat tax and the fair tax is?
The flat tax is still an income tax.
Okay.
The flat tax, by the way, the fair tax, because it eliminates income tax, eliminates the IRS, because the IRS is in place to enforce income tax. The flat tax is still an income tax. It still discourages people from working. It is still subject to it's going to have deductions in it. You're going to have a basic family deduction or mortgage deduction or something like that in there. So it leaves the door wide open for Congress to manipulate the code, whereas the fair tax does not.
So with the flat tax, we aren't eliminating the IRS, but with the fair tax, we are?
Absolutely. And in fact, it is specifically written into the bill that the IRS is defunded with the passage of the fair tax.
How close are we to passing this thing?
We have, in Congress right now, we've got, in the House, there's 66 co-sponsors. In the Senate, there's a companion bill. In the House, it's H.R. 25. In the Senate, that's 13. In the House, 66 co-sponsors. In the Senate, we've got about 8 or 9, I think, co-sponsors on it. The biggest uphill battle, quite frankly, is our Congress people don't want to do this because it limits it takes away their ability to hand out tax preferences. Right.
We're up against a break right now, but we'll be right back. We are listening to Jim Donnell and learning more and more about the fair tax, and I'm loving what I'm hearing, getting rid of the IRS. We want to have you right back, right here on KTKZ 1380 Radio.